you've spent any time at all researching MOTS-c, you already know that it's not a simple story. You see, some people swear by it. Others feel worse the moment that they start. And somewhere in the online threads and in the YouTube comments, there's a cancer question that nobody seems to answer with anything more than just a little shrug. Here's what I can tell you after years of working with patients on this very thing. The confusion isn't because MOTS-c is overly complicated. It's because most people explaining it are working backwards from the reaction instead of forward from the mechanism. When you understand what this peptide is doing, where it comes from, how it works, and why certain people respond the way that they do, I think everything will start to click, and that's what we're gonna get into today. I'm Dr. Jones, DC, and I lead a nationwide metabolic clinic. Our medical team works with patients on GLP-1 medications, peptide protocols, and the full picture of what it takes to optimize metabolic health. And me and my coaches, we get into the granular, nitty-gritty lifestyle. Now, MOTS-c specifically, I've worked with patients who have responded well, the ones who've crashed, and the ones who came in with nothing but questions, and I've had all of the conversations. So I wanna give you the clearest version of what I know based on what I've actually seen and what the biology supports. So here's what almost every conversation about MOTS-c gets wrong from the start. This isn't synthetic. It's not something a lab invented and decided to inject into people. It is encoded in your mitochondrial DNA. Now, most cells in your body contain mitochondria, and those mitochondria have been producing this peptide across multiple tissues your entire life. So think about that for a second. Your body already knows this signal. It already knows how to receive it, how to use it, how to respond to it. You're not introducing something foreign. You're actually working with something that's your own biology built. So what changes as you get older is more straightforward than you might think. Your levels, they start to drop, and not exercising keeps them lower those levels than they actually could be. You see, metabolic dysfunction drives them lower as well. The same things that quietly erode your metabolic health over time also erode this signal. When I looked at patients who are metabolically stressed, who haven't been moving much, who have been running on empty for years, their mitochondrial signaling is already compromised before they ever consider a peptide protocol. So endogenous production, their internal production, just isn't keeping up. Exercise raises your natural levels meaningfully, both in muscle tissue and circulation. That's part of why exercise is so powerful for metabolic health. It's not just calories burned, it's the signals that your mitochondria send when you stress them appropriately. Now, external, exogenous meaning external, MOTS-c, when you inject it, it amplifies that same signaling pathway. So it's giving your cells something they already recognize at a level that your body may no longer be producing on its own. And that distinction, the endogenous origin, recognized signal, declining with age, that's the foundation of the safety argument. And when we get to the cancer question here in a few minutes, this is where the fear just gets it wrong. So I want you to keep that in mind. So if this is something that your body already produces, how does it work? When it's active in your cells, it disrupts something called the folate cycle, specifically the part tied to de novo purine synthesis. And before your eyes glaze over, here's why that matters in plain language. When that folate cycle gets disrupted, a compound called AICAR for short accumulates, AICAR. It's a distress signal, and it tells your cells that energy is running low and they need to adapt. And that signal actually activates AMPK, the switch that controls how your cells handle energy. And when that switch flips, three things happen at the same time. So number one, your insulin sensitivity improves. So your cells start listening to insulin better. Number two, GLUT transporters, they activate, which means blood sugar moves into your muscle cells through insulin independent pathways. They don't have to wait for insulin to get into the cell and unlock the door, right? And number three, mitochondrial biogenesis turns on. Your cells literally start building new mitochondria. That's why people compare this to exercise, because exercise stresses your cells. And that same energy sensing mechanism, it kicks in and your metabolism responds. Now this peptide triggers that same cascade without that physical output required. That's why it's referred to as exercise in a bottle, and it's mechanistically accurate. But here's the part that separates MOTS-c from almost every other peptide in the market. Under metabolic stress, it doesn't just stay in the mitochondria, it moves. It translocates into the cell nucleus, right? That's like the brain of the cell. And once it's there, it starts regulating stress response genes directly. It influences how your cells read certain survival and adaptation instructions. So let's map this out because I want this to be visual for you. So the signal comes in, and what happens next depends entirely on what it has to work with. So a strong metabolic foundation, you're going to get great results, right? So, but you get a compromised system, the system gets stressed before it can adapt, we're going to come back to that visual because it explains why some people feel incredible on this and others feel like they got hit by a truck. So this is when your foundation is not in. Now I want to plant one more thing. That folate cycle disruption that I just described, the one that starts this whole cascade, it's going to come back up when we talk about reactions, because the histamine response that a lot of people experience, the flushing, the tightness, the injection site flare, that's not a separate problem. That's a downstream consequence of this exact mechanism. Same pathway, different output. I want you to hold on to that for a minute. Now, if you're already building a protocol and you want actual medical oversight, not just source, not just a protocol PDF, our medical team works with patients directly, prescribing, monitoring, adjusting based on what's happening in your labs and your responses. The link is below, or you guys can text number on the screen to get started with a free discovery call. Now let's talk about the cancer question, because here's where the fear comes from. And I want to be clear, it's not completely made up. There's a real nuance in the biology around that energy sensing pathway. So in certain metabolic states, it can behave differently depending on what's happening in the cell. And that context dependency is well documented. And someone somewhere connected that to this peptide, and that concern just grew like wildfire, like most cancer concerns that have mechanisms that could make sense when you think about it. The problem is that it's a theoretical concern about that pathway just in a general sense. It's not specific to MOTS-c. And when you look at what the data shows, the direction is not what the fear assumes. So what I keep seeing in the research is that lower levels are lower in ovarian cancer patients, and early data suggests similar patterns in some other cancers, not higher, lower. And when exogenous MOTS-c has been studied in ovarian cancer models, the finding has been inhibition of proliferation, not promotion of it, right? So it's slowing down, not promoting the growth. The signal moves in a protective direction, not a permissive one. So think about the age correlation here. So levels decline as you get older. Cancer risks rise as you get older. If it were pro-tumorigenic, right? If it fed cancer, you'd expect that correlation to run the other way. But the data points in the opposite direction, even if the causal link isn't fully proven yet. Now, I'm not telling you this is definitely proven to be 100% safe. There's no large human safety trials. That's the honest reality of where the research is at right now. But what I'm telling you is that the fear is based on a real mechanism applied to the wrong target. The biology points in one direction, fear-based avoidance built on a concern that was never specific to MOTS-c. That's not a well-researched position. Me personally, I love this peptide and I will continue to use it. I personally do one cycle of MOTS-c every single year, and it seems to help keep my body in a level of fitness that I couldn't achieve otherwise, even separate from what GLP-1 medications do for me. In the patients that I coach, this question comes up. My answer is always the same. Show me the specific data and it doesn't support the fear. Go back to that origin story. Your body already produces this. Your levels have been declining, and the thing that correlates with rising cancer risk is the absence of the signal, not the presence of it. Now, let's talk about what happens to real patients on this peptide. Not theoretical, real reactions, real reasons, and what to do about them. Okay, so number one, the histamine reaction. This is probably the most common thing that users report. Generally, you're gonna see flushing, skin reactions, maybe some respiratory tightness, injection site flare-ups. People assume it's a bad thing or an allergy, but it's actually neither. Remember that folate cycle disruption that I told you to hold on to? Here's where it starts to come back. MOTS-c is a positively charged peptide, so when you inject it into the subcutaneous fat, you're delivering it into tissue loaded with mast cells. Now mast cells are sensitive to cationic compounds, positively charged compounds. They release histamine and the metabolic activation, and the metabolic activation that this triggers may add to that histamine load. This is not your body rejecting it. This is your body responding to the mechanism that is MOTS-c. Now the reaction and the result, they come from the same place. So what do you do about it, right? You start low and you titrate up slowly. Inject at room temperature. Go slow on the administration, and if it's persistent, an antihistamine can help, or consider intramuscular instead of subcutaneous. Now, most people find it self-limiting once the body adjusts. Now, the fatigue. This one confuses people the most because it feels like it shouldn't be happening. You're taking something that's supposed to boost your energy and you feel worse. So the reason behind this is pretty straightforward. So getting back to the drawing, right? MOTS-c amplifies mitochondrial demand. It cranks that signal up. If your mitochondria are already damaged, already stressed, already running compromised, what we typically see is consistent with asking a broken engine to just run harder. The system hits its actual capacity first. That's what the crash looks like. This is why our medical team typically sequences SS31 before MOTS-c. SS31 is a mitochondrial repair peptide. It addresses existing damages first. Once the engine is in better shape, the MOTS-c has something to work with. You can't optimize a system that hasn't been repaired. This is why I always talk about foundation first. It isn't dangerous in most cases to run MOTS-c on compromised mitochondria, but it explains perfectly why so many people report feeling great for a few days and then hitting a brick wall, or they just feel crappy as soon as they start. You're trying to overtax an engine that desperately needs a tune-up. Now, quick but important note here, the caloric deficit interaction. Running a steep calorie deficit while on this compound is asking your metabolism to upregulate energy production while you're simultaneously starving the system. That switch that we talked about, the energy sensing pathways, it's already firing hard under calorie deficit conditions. You layer this on top of that and you may push it into overactivation territory. Now, patients report feeling significantly worse. And if this is the kind of deep dive that you want more of, guys, hit that subscribe button because we cover peptide optimization, GLP-1 protocols, and the full metabolic picture at a level that most channels just don't touch. And be sure to hit that bell so that you don't miss the next one. Okay, so the last one here, this is homocysteine. Now, this won't apply to everybody, but if you're in any of these categories, and be sure to try to add it to your lab panel because MOTS-c acts on the folate methionine cycle. It could theoretically affect homocysteine levels if you carry an MTHFR variant. So if you've had a reaction on this peptide, fatigue, histamine response, feeling worse instead of better, let me know in the comments. Tell me what you were running and what happened, what dose, and I'll jump in and share what I see with patients in similar situations. Now, let's talk about how to run this. Not the Reddit doses, not the more is more approach, but what I see working when we're building this into a real protocol. The protocol that our medical team uses is 10 milligrams in a single injection once a week, morning administration. This is what I see working. And if you want to load in faster, you can hit a saturation point. Some patients will run it up to 3 times per week, just for 2 weeks. Same 10 milligram dose, but 3 times a week. After that, back to once a week. 8 weeks to 12 is a maximum cycle before you take a break, say a month or 2 off. And in most cases, this is not a cycle that you would run again, but most of our patients do pretty well with one structured 2 to 3 month cycle. So now the sequencing question. We've covered SS31, but I also want to be specific about where MOTS-c slots in. You do SS31 first. You repair the engine before you ask it to run harder if you need the repair. Once SS31 is nearing the end of its cycle, that's when we introduce this MOTS-c. You get continual mitochondrial activation with something that's been cleared to receive it. Now, one more thing on the sequencing. If you're on Sloop 332, some people will say that you can't stack these together. Now, you don't need to stack them together. They're both exercise mimetics, so the thought would be don't stack these at the same time, but they don't hit the same pathway. 0304, MOTS-c, these peptides both hit the AMPK pathway. They're both powerful exercise mimetics that do a lot of the same thing, AMP activation. Now, when it comes to Sloop 332, it is an exercise mimetic, but it works on completely different pathways. So again, not saying you need to stack them together. In fact, that would be a pretty powerful cycle, but you can, and it's okay because there are complementary exercise mimetic pathways. They don't do the same thing. Now, on the GLP-1 question, this is a pairing that I find compelling. GLP-1 drugs act through hormonal incretin receptors, while MOTS-c works inside cells through AMPK and mitochondrial stress signaling. We don't have head-to-head trials, but the mechanism tells you why these two make sense together. They're not competing, they're hitting same metabolic problems from opposite ends, which we can't hit that metabolic problem. The last thing that I'll say on this protocol, this is not a starter peptide. It's not what you lead in with if you're new to this space. It's a layer. It goes in after the foundation is established, after the basics are dialed in, after the mitochondria have had support. We typically don't introduce mitochondrial output peptides like this in the first phase of the protocol. 3 months in is a more reasonable window for most patients. Now, the FDA is scheduled to review compounding peptide access upcoming here, including this one in July of 2026. That's not a reason to panic. It's a reason to pay attention and work with somebody tracking the regulatory landscape and not delay if this is something that you've been considering. Okay, so if you made it this far, what was the thing that surprised you the most? Was it the cancer data, the histamine connection, the sequencing? Let me know below because I'm curious about what lands for people that watch my content. And if you've been doing your own research on this and you want to run it with a medical team in your corner, that's what we do. Our physicians prescribe, monitor labs, and adjust protocols based on your individual response. This isn't a wellness consult, it's clinical oversight on a peptide protocol to help you achieve real success. Now, one more thing to be upfront about. If you already have peptides from another source and you're looking for someone to supervise those, that's not how we work. Our medical team oversees protocols that they prescribe. That's what makes the medical oversight real. And if you're watching this because stubborn weight is the problem and you want something that goes after the root cause, not just peptides, but the full metabolic picture, that's what we do. Let us know on that call which one makes sense for you. The free discovery call that I talked about, the link is below, or you can text the number on the screen. And if you want to understand how to repair your mitochondria, all the different options that you have, the peptides, the tools that we offer, I broke down the full protocol in this video right there. That's where I'd start. We'll see you guys later.